Wholeness, welcome. This is Josh Dippold of Integrating Presence and Innerskill.com. And today I'm joining you from Sedona, Arizona, here in the background. Some red rocks. And today I'm joined by Chris Donaldson. Chris, how's it going today?
I'm good. Josh, how are you?
Oh, all right. And this is a standard question I usually ask since Chris and I haven't really talked is who is Chris Donaldson and what does he do?
What did I do? Well, I'm a pensioner now. I just hit 66 yesterday. I live in Belfast, Northern Ireland, but I've done a lot of traveling around the place in my life. Was brought up here in the 70s, and like a lot of kids those days, all I wanted to do was get out of Belfast and see the world. So I did that. I decided I want to go to Australia on a motorbike, which is another story why I wanted to do that. I just sometimes I don't make life too easy for myself, I think.
Well, that's how we grow, right? I mean, if everything was easy all the time, I mean, what would be that? There wouldn't be any growth in that. So, it sounds like you went out of your way a little bit, maybe to have a little extra challenge. I mean, this is pretty amazing to set the goal of riding a motorbike around the entire world. I mean, well, of course you can't go across the ocean, right? But as close as possible. So, I mean, before we get into that, I just want to just show my how green I am on this. I think I've rode a motorcycle like twice, and a mini bike, and I turned it over, wasn't hurt. But then the other one, I tried to go and park it on a kickstand, and it fell over, and the muffler burnt my leg. So at that point, I just said, okay, I'm
This
I'm okay with the car. So unfortunately, I can't get into the thing like my dad and uncle who put together Harley Davidsons from a box. They got a box used Harley Davidson shipped to them in the 60s and 70s, and they put this together in a shop without, they just came and they just figured it out how to put it together because it was in parts, right? But so I don't know next to nothing about motorcycles, but
I,
apparently you have some kind of classic bike, and then you tell us a little bit about that, but I'm even more interested in how you how I mean, what made you think of doing this? I mean, yeah, I get it traveling around, but crossing the whole world on a motorcycle, I mean, that's pretty a wild idea. How'd that get in your mind? What tell us about that too?
yeah, well, what happened was I was about 16 years old, stuck in detention at school for doing some bad thing or other. Can't remember what it was, but I was reading the motorcycle news, which is sort of standard kids motorbike magazine that were here in those days. It's still going. But there was an article about a young lady who was driving around the world on a VSA Bantam, which coincidentally was the same bike as I had, the 175. So I thought, well, if she can do that, I can do that. So fast forward a couple of years, I got myself a Moto Guzzi Le Mans, which is a sporty Italian bike. Not really what sort of thing you choose to go touring in. So people like going touring with a caravan and driving a Ferrari. But it's a couple of the bike I had since one I took off on 40 odd years ago. But the biggest coincidence was that a couple of years ago, I went to a motorbike festival, and one of the ladies talking was this elderly lady who was talking about riding around the world on a BSA Bantam 40, 50 years ago. It turned out it was the same girl that I read the article about when I was 16. So it was a rather nice coincidence to meet up with the one who set me on my way. So hopefully I don't set too many other people on my way with my story.
Well, what a synchronicity, right? I mean, what's the chances of that happen? I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty wild. So why don't you get into some of the details? Where did you left Belfast? This particular is kind of an overview. Where'd you go first, and then and then like, where did you come into trouble with, and logistics? How did all
Well,
that work, basically?
the trouble started pretty quick. As I say, I left Belfast in October '79. I got as far as London, which is obviously where the embassies are to get my visas, to get my passport stamped, to get everything organised for riding to Australia. And when I was there, I was stayed about 2 weeks. It was about the 5th of November 1979. Ayatollah Khomeini decided to take over the American embassy in Tehran, started the Islamic Revolution there. So that was basically my road east to Australia was gone. It was blocked, so I couldn't go there. So I couldn't go back to my friends. And after 2 weeks, telling them I'm going to ride around the world and come back 2 weeks later saying I got as far as London. So I had the only place I could think of going was South Africa. So after being sort of spending the last sort of 4 or 5 years planning this ride to Australia and all the routes, maps and everything, I ended up going a completely different direction, going south instead of east, through a continent I knew nothing about at all. And the beauty about that was, well, if I did know about it, I wouldn't have gone because everybody would have told me not to go. Africa in the 80s was a pretty rough place to be. I was just getting over their various colonial escapades. It was in the Middle East, was in Israel, which wasn't much better than it is now. Syria and Jordan were dodgy. And that's all the politics. From Egypt through Sudan, I had to ride across the desert, which was not to be done lightly on a road motorbike. But yeah, so instead of going following my plan, I ended up going the wrong way altogether. Ended up in Cape Town in the middle of apartheid. I got a place in a racing yacht coming back to Europe, and then shipped it back to the States, drove up to Canada, and then, long story short, drove all the way down to South America to Argentina. So that's why my book is called Going the Wrong Way, because as I said, I left to go to Australia and ended up on the other side of the world altogether. But following the next 40 years, I sort of realized over time that it wasn't just my journey that went the wrong way. My life is I've always picked a harder way to do things for some reason. As we were saying earlier, the main reason you do something a hard way is because of the challenge. And I always thought the reason I was doing the trip was to find out about myself, as sort of like a coming of age journey. But actually, it wasn't so much to find myself; it was just to find what I could do, challenge myself into various situations that there was only myself to get into and out of again. When you're brought up in the West, States is much the same as here. Everything's done for you from when you're born. Your parents look after you. Then you go to school and your teachers look after you. And then you go to work and there's various systems, health systems, working systems. Everything's organized for you. You don't have to do anything strange. You don't have to think about anything. You live your whole life just following the rules and getting a job, getting married, having kids, blah, 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 and then end up dying. And that's what you're supposed to do, really. But I wanted to do something different, I guess. I hadn't worked that out at the time, but it took me 40 years to work that out afterwards.
Well, that's so cool. It takes a lot of courage. Well, some people might say crazy, but other people might say it takes a lot of courage and guts to do things your own way and try to test social conventions and actually, challenge oneself to more. I mean, when we hear, extreme sports, and there's plenty of ways to do it. This is a really interesting way too. Well, let's talk about some of the particular challenges that you did. Like, did you ever run out of gas? I mean, just talking about local currency. I mean, was it really easy to just have enough money, places to sleep at night, just basic, human needs when you're going,
Yeah.
Getting water and gas to the desert? What was all that like? And did you run into any particular colorful challenges along just basic day to day on such
Yeah.
long rides?
Well, certainly in Africa, one of the big problems was having enough gas, as you call it, petrol. When I go to a place called Wow in southern Sudan, not as it is now, there was no gas, no petrol to be found anywhere. Petrol stations were all empty. But eventually I tracked down a guy who had one of the charities had sent him over a van which had petrol in it, and the roads are so bad the van lasted for about 6 months and then fell apart completely. So I was able to siphon some petrol out of that. But it was 600 miles between the next petrol station, so hopefully, which is pretty hard to ride on a motorbike. You have to carry about 15 gallons of gas on dirt roads to get to the next place. So Africa is certainly probably the hardest part of the trip, places like that. The next country to south from Sudan was Uganda, and it had just got rid of Idi Amin, which you probably heard the stories about him. He used to feed all his politicians to the crocodiles, which probably isn't a bad idea these days as well. But if I'd asked anybody, should I go to Uganda at this stage, they would have said, no, you're going to get your throat cut, because it was total lawless at that stage. I mean, in Kampala, most of the hotels have been ransacked and been stripped of everything. So I ended up sleeping in the assistant headquarters, police headquarters in Kampala, sleeping top of the desk in the main director's desk, because all the cops just disappeared. So it was pretty lawless. I think there were 6 cops left in the whole station to run the whole city, So it was very much a sort of, challenges were coming as I went along, which is part of the beauty of it. Usually, when you go traveling these days, you've got a destination in mind. You're going somewhere for a particular reason. Whereas my journey ended where I'd set off to go to Australia. I soon had to give that up because I was going the wrong direction. And really, it was a matter of just traveling for the sake of traveling rather than traveling to get to anywhere, which has got to be the purest form of traveling. You're just doing it for the sake of the journey rather than to actually get somewhere.
And just sleeping. Would you just sleep on the side of the road, or would you, and then food? Just were markets available and things like that? Just basic things like that. Water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes you had to buy water. I remember paying, I don't know, £1 for a glass of mug of muddy water, which is all I had to drink. But no, my main problem was actually probably money, because I'd left to go to Australia. It would have taken about 3 months, whereas I was on the road at the end for a year and a half. So everything was living very cheap, living like the natives in the native places, sleeping in the workers' sort of hotels or camping at the side of the road, which is always a bit of a worry in Africa, because he didn't know whether to be more scared of the people or the animals. I think he was more scared of the people at the end of the day. But yeah, it was pretty rough living most of the journey. But we find in some of these countries, overheads can be very low. The hotels are cheap, petrol, some of these places 10 cents a litre. So you can travel. It's amazing how far you can go on very little.
And then, did you go through Africa passports? Did they not even care at that time? You could just basically go from one country to another without having to go get a visa for every country.
Well, you had to get a visa usually in the capital city or at the border, depending where you were. But certainly, there's a couple of borders to cross. I tried to get from Israel into Egypt, but the border was closed there, so I ended up having to go back to Cyprus, across to Syria, which was pretty scary, and down through Jordan. So you run up across a closed border. There's always a way around it. If you have to go around it, to find another road, which sometimes goes right, sometimes goes wrong. But yeah, visas were a problem. I mean, Rhodesia was still just changing from Rhodesia to Zimbabwe. When I left, there was a civil war going on. By the time I got there, the war is finished. But they didn't believe me that I actually set off to go that way. Nobody believed me that I actually didn't know where I was going. Even, I was just traveling for the sake of traveling, as I say. But it was there's lots of boring bits, lots of exciting bits as well. Yeah.
Okay, so as far as the practical traveling, let's start wrapping this up. So you did make it to Australia. Did you have any plan how you would get the bike there? Would you going to have it flown over in a ship? I mean, you obviously can't go fast enough to go across the ocean to Australia, right? How did you
No.
plan to get it there, and how did it actually, get there? Or and then tell folks about how you, I guess, you finally wrapped up your journey, and you're satisfied that you did it in a way too.
Well, sort of way. I did wrap up the journey, but it took me 40 years to do it, because I got back home in 1981. I was sick, I was broke, the bike was a mess. Um, I shipped it home and got on with normal life, getting married, having kids, working for a living. But then I finally decided to write a book about the trip, which was quite enthralling, because I was able to, all my notes from my journals. In fact, I started writing a book when I was 22. But when I went back at the age of 62, it was quite unique to be able to read about my journey that I'd made as a younger person, and see what was going through my head and the troubles. And it was like meeting somebody I knew a long time ago, but just you hadn't seen him for years. So yeah, published a book on Amazon, um, and still got a job. The family's here, so on. But one of my friends said, "Well, you never actually got to Australia 40 years ago. Why not have another go?" So that's not a bad idea. So, and 2 years ago, just after COVID, we set off in stages. Couldn't afford to go away for a year and a half again, so I went away for 2 weeks, parked the bike up, back home to work and play and family stuff, and then 2 months later, I picked the bike up into the next leg. So we did it in stages. Unfortunately, Liam, the guy, had persuaded me to go to take on the journey again. Halfway or a quarter into it, he decided he wasn't up to it or didn't want to do it, so he went home. So I was stuck. The guy had persuaded me to do it. Basically left me in the lurch a wee bit. But as I went on, I didn't mind, because traveling on your own is a completely different level of comfort and of experience than traveling with a group of people. If you can imagine, just as simple as simply going into a bar or restaurant with 3 or 4 people, you just talk to your friends. You won't know what's going on about you. But if you go in a bar on your own, you've got to talk to somebody, because you can't just stand there like a dork. So you've got to make conversation, and people will make conversation with you if you're on your own. Whereas if you're with 4 or 5 bikers, they'll be hesitant, So it gives you a much better journey if you're traveling on your own, because you've got to get out of your shell and make out of your comfort shell, out of your comfort zone. And that's how you learn about people, learn about countries and where you are and what's going on, and learn about yourself as well. So yeah, I finally made it to Australia last year, after 43 years after I set off in 1979. On the same motorbike, the same person, just with, instead of, I was 63 instead of 22.
And you made it all the way across, I imagine. And uh, tell me about where the bike is now, and also we'll start jumping in here to what you learned from all this. And like you're saying, of course, the number one thing I would think is courage to do this. I could imagine you learned a lot of negotiating skills, people skills. I mean, you probably encountered some situations and characters where you had to really, connect with them in order to move along in your journey and to be safe, and then what kind of wisdom, came from all this. We could start getting into some of this, because this isn't just about only about a surface travel journey, which is extreme enough in its own, but the life lessons involved.
Yeah, but when I was 21, I probably didn't realize what I'd learned, because what I learned was what I learned. Kids only know the past, and you haven't got a lot of past. You're only 21. You haven't really experienced that. You maybe think you know everything, but you actually you know very little. I'm 63, 65. I don't know if I know any more either, but it's all a matter of the fun's in finding out. But yeah, I think at the time I left, I thought I was trying to find myself and put myself in situations away from all the web of entanglement that your family and your friends and your job or your school has. It was good just to be on my own and learn if I was strong enough or motivated enough to get through on my own. So it was quite a journey that way. I was a lot fitter than I was. When you're 21, you're fit for anything. You think you're indestructible. Whereas at 60 odd, doing the same journey, I've got a bit of Parkinson's coming in. Your sore back, your joints, things are wearing out. Things aren't quite as strong, and you can't ride as long as you used to. But on the other hand, you've got much more experience of how to get out of situations, and much more confident and much more able to do other situations mentally, I think, anyway. The new trip's going to be called Adventure Before Dementia. But so hopefully I've got a wee bit of time before that happens. Otherwise, the older you get, you do start forgetting things, and things where you go into rooms and wonder what you're doing there and that sort of thing, So the new trip has been to try and show people that even though you're getting old, you're retired. You're still not done. You've plenty of room, plenty of miles to do on the clock. But at this stage of my life, I know a lot of friends who are retiring, worked for 40 years, and when they retire, they really don't know what to do with themselves. They end up sort of planting vegetables in the garden and going out playing golf twice a week. Whereas really, you should be doing something. You've got all the time. You've hopefully got more money. Hopefully, you can motivate yourself to get out of your comfort zone and discover yourself a bit more. Take yourself away from when you're 21, you've got your family and your job and your that sort of thing has been influencing you. But 63, your family should be grown up. You got some more money. It's a different form of challenge. It's more of a, as I say, trying to look after your mental, your physical ability to work or to ride the bike.
Yeah, it's this notion of coming of age story too. It's huge because in the West, we don't really have this kind of initiation process where elders
Mm.
come in and guide the youngsters into adulthood. So a lot of times in the West, we just have to kind of figure it out for ourselves, and not a lot of things in the West fit into certain boxes. There's different things, and people get into a lot of trouble too. But the other thing you talked about that was really struck me is the comfort zone thing, getting out of your comfort zone. Wow. I think as far as on the external world, I couldn't think of, there's very few things I can think of self-initiated like you did to get out of the comfort zone. Just kind of take off and do a walkabout. You talked about, you didn't talk about it, but you write about, I've read about a walkabout where you just kind of wander, and it does remind me of this thing in really lesser known thing in the Buddhist canon about how those who have there's a lot of, I don't know, anger and trouble in the world because there's a thorn deep in the heart that's hard to tell, and once we remove this thorn from the heart deep within, we can settle down with ease, and we can wander and travel about with ease. So you definitely have to have a really good heart like you have in order to do this. And getting out of the comfort zone, it's huge for a lot of people. Some people actually probably need more of a comfort zone because they need more stability in their lives, but other people are kind of addicted to being safe and comfortable, right? So talk a little bit more about that, and then I think we'll start wrapping up here soon. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's not just people who are in the comfort zone. Your whole society I feel, is pushing us to be in a comfort zone, not to take risks. And there's a whole health and safety. Health and safety is everything now, from riding a bicycle to do whatever. You've got to follow the rules. It's governmental pressure to make people follow the rules. Governments don't like people to do things on their own, to think about things themselves, because they can't be controlled so much. So if you do look at yourself and take yourself out of your comfort zone, as I say, whether it's by moving, by traveling, or by doing whatever it is you want to do, I think it's very important for your well-being. I think a lot of people never get out of their comfort zone. They sort of join the civil service, join the bank when they leave university, and they're always following the rules. Going away, I realized this was when I started writing the book. There's a lot of times I've gone the wrong way in my life. I've done things more difficult than they should have been. And it's taken longer, or it's been more expensive, or I've failed to do it because I took the wrong road. But it's been a lot more fun than just doing what you're told all the time. But that's when you're 21. As I said, very similar, being 60, 65, 66. It's a very similar stage of coming of age as well. Coming of old age, maybe is a better way to put it. But you're moving into a different sort of section of your life. It's the last section, but it's one of the most important ones, because hopefully you've got time and money, and you don't care. I think the older you get, you don't care what anybody thinks of you anyway. When you're 21, in your 20s or teens, you're always worried about what people think of you, what your friends are thinking of you, what girls are thinking of you. You don't have the confidence to do what you want to do, Whereas you're 60 odd, you don't really give a damn what anybody thinks of you anymore. That's just it.
Yeah, it changed when I learned that what other people think of me is none of my business. That helped me a lot to get out of that one. And yeah, we do live in such a nanny state in the West. I love that term, nanny state, because it is. And then with the millennial generation, I mean, there's a lot of good things about it, but they've just been, I wouldn't say babied, and I don't want to talk down, but it's just like if one's conditioned their whole life to do this, and talk about self-reliance too. There is a lot of that in the American West of self-reliance,
Yeah.
and just because we don't, just because we're kind of deviate from the norm doesn't mean we're, bad people or doing anything wrong. It's just that a lot of us can think for ourselves, want to take risk and do something different. We look at life and say, okay, well, is that it? That's
Yeah.
it. So yeah, I would the amount of courage yeah, I mean, that you cultivated is pretty fantastic.
Courage or stupidity sometimes, so I think it was whenever I read the book myself. But yeah, I think it is hard for kids. I mean, one of the biggest differences between traveling now and 40 years ago is obviously the internet, because everything's there that you want. You can GPS, you never get lost. You got Facebook, you keep in touch with your friends. You can phone home from anywhere in the world as long as you got some Wi-Fi, 3G, whatever. So things have got a lot easier in some ways, but things got a lot harder for kids in a way, because they're controlled by the Facebook, by the internet, by Instagram. They're so wrapped up in what people are thinking of them. They can't miss being on the phone, and the phone takes up. I mean, people are spending half the day, 6-10 hours a day on their phone, just reading about nonsense. I think it's been one of the biggest, most important things that's happened certainly in the last 40 years, and unfortunately not all good, because it's an addictive platform for people to get onto. They can't get off it again. They just sit in their rooms and watch. It's as if watching something happen, watching other people do things, rather they should be out doing it themselves.
Yeah, it's designed that way to be addictive and doom
Totally.
scrolling. I've heard some people talk about it. And yeah, that's right. And even if people, there's really no excuse not to go anywhere, because that's one of the things that helped me back. Now the GPS, it's so easy to get around, find places, communicate with people. It's nothing like what you did, because everything's at your fingertips now. And the other thing, though, if people do something like this, spend less time taking pictures of themselves and everything else and putting it on social media constantly. I mean, you can't tell everybody to just give that up cold turkey, but that's another trap. If people embark on this, they might spend just as much time trying to put it on social media. But
Yeah.
I'm kind of hypocritical here too, right? Because this is probably going to go on YouTube. But
There's a podcast.
yeah,
Don't do what
exactly.
I say,
So
do what I do.
yeah, exactly. So it's just like, okay, where's the balance here? I mean, it's
Well,
great. Pros and cons, weighing pros and cons.
totally. I remember being in South Africa we'd been out in a game park watching these animals and stuff, and we're sitting at the bar afterwards having a beer talking about it. And I noticed there's a crowd of kids in the corner, and they're all on their phones. And 40 years ago, they'd all been talking to each other about what they'd seen, but all they really wanted to do is put their photographs on YouTube and Facebook and get the first post out, which I thought was a bit sad.
Yeah, I have seen old photographs too. Or today you see photographs, everybody's looking at their phone, but there's
Yeah.
everybody's reading a newspaper. On public transportation, everybody's reading their newspaper. So but yeah, it is pretty ubiquitous to see people on their phones all the time, especially in the certain countries in the States,
Yeah.
especially. Well, Chris, this has been cool. Let's. And fascinating. I enjoyed hearing about your journeys, and you've got you got bigger balls than a lot of people out there. I'll say that, doing stuff like this for sure. If this isn't a totally family friendly show, I guess I can say that. So, all right. Tell people where they can find you online, how they can buy your book, what your book's called, if you have any other events or things similar to this coming up, anything you want to draw people's attention to, and then what kind of message would you like to leave folks with today?
Well, the book's available on the company we love and hate at the same time, Amazon, because much as we think they're taking over the world, we think they're taking over the world, which they are, but the other minute you can't do without them because everything's so available for you. And it is brilliant. I mean, I was able to write a book in Belfast and put it online. You can buy it anywhere in the world, on audiobook, on ebook, on paperback. So it's called Going the Wrong Way by Chris Donaldson. As I said, it's selling very well. A lot of people got some great reviews, over 1,300 5-star reviews, which is pretty hot. We've got a website, chrisdonaldson.world, and you can order it through that. What was the last thing you asked me?
Oh yeah, that's
What are we
great. If you
drinking?
have anything, in the works, like if you have another book coming up, another journey, and then anything you want to draw people's attention to, and then like
Yeah.
what kind of message, like to wrap this all up, what would you want to just tell people?
I suppose probably just to
Anything?
get off your ass and get out and do it. Many people have plans, plan this. They plan to the nth degree because it's possible, because you can get on the internet and see what the next city's going to be like and find your hotels and check the reviews, and everything's there. For all the information's there, which spoils the trip in a way because it takes away the excitement of of being somewhere that you don't know what's going on. But I just say to people, get off your ass and do it. But no matter what age you are, if you're in your 20s, make the most of it because you got the energy and hopefully the time. And if you're in your 60s, you might be running out of time because you don't know when you're going to get some form of illness or whatever. So get off your ass and get out and do it. Don't let being old hold you back. Older.
Well, cool, Chris. Thanks again for joining, and may you all out there find the best way possible, whether it be right, wrong, or otherwise. And wishing everyone the best journeys possible. All right. May you all be well. Bye now.
Bye.